Grace Sutton felt utterly defeated. After 10 years of marriage, Oliver had proven to be of no value. While she owned 2 shopping centers and multiple apartment complexes, he struggled to hold any job she offered, including simple ones like janitorial work. In their intimate moments, she often had to take the lead, and there were times he simply didn't respond to her advances. Contemplating divorce, she sat on the edge of her bed, searching for a way out when Lucy, her determined maid of over 12 years, entered the room. Noticing Grace's distress, Lucy asked, "You look troubled. Is something wrong? Maybe I can help. I may not know much about finances, but if it's something else, I might have some ideas." Feeling the weight of her situation, Grace decided to confide in Lucy. "I don't know if I should share this, but I need to talk. It's Oliver. He's useless. He can't do anything right. He's not great in bed either. I've tried him at 15 different jobs, but he fails at all of them." "What does he do all day?" Lucy replied, "Well, he mostly plays computer games and watches TV. I suggested he try jogging once, but he said it wasn't for him. He doesn't have much drive, he just likes to lounge around. Can you think of anything he might be able to do that would actually help?" Grace asked. Lucy replied, "Honestly, I could use some assistance. This house is large, and there's a lot to do. But I don't think Oliver would make a good maid. I can't exactly give orders to the master of the house, can I?" Grace paused to consider. "Do you think he could manage maid duties?" Lucy said, "To be a good maid requires training and the ability to follow directions. Mr. Oliver doesn't take kindly to being told what to do. If I gave you the authority to direct him, do you think you could make him useful around here?" Grace inquired. Lucy responded, "I truly believe I could make anyone useful, but I might need to discipline him to get good results." "I've made my decision," Grace declared. "You can have him as your junior maid. Now, how do we get him to cooperate?" Lucy proposed a plan, and Grace was impressed by her maid's resourcefulness. She thought Lucy could have thrived in business. They agreed to implement Lucy's suggestions promptly. After Lucy left, Grace felt lighter, a smile creeping onto her face for the first time in ages. The next day, Grace returned home at noon, arms full of packages, which she placed in the spare bedroom. She joined Oliver for lunch. "Oliver, what do you do all day? You're alone here, it must be boring," she asked. He replied, "I watch TV and play on the computer. I keep busy." Grace continued, "Well, Lucy mentioned she could use a hand sometimes. Maybe you could help her out? I don't know anything about being a maid." "That's women's work," Oliver said dismissively. "Lucy is an excellent maid. I'm just asking that if she needs help, you offer it." "I wouldn't want to lose her," Grace insisted. Grace knew Oliver understood that she was firmly instructing him to assist Lucy. She left for work, and he returned to his computer. Later that afternoon, Lucy approached him. "I have a problem," Lucy said. "I'm sewing a new uniform for formal occasions, and I can't get the hem pinned correctly. Could you help me? I don't know anything about pinning a hem." "I'm sorry. Just tell me what to do, and I'll try my best," Oliver offered. "That's not what I had in mind. I was thinking if you could try it on, I could pin it better," Lucy explained. "It's 4:30. Can't it wait until tomorrow?" "Grace will be home soon," Oliver said. "Mrs. Sutton won't be back until 6, and this will only take about 20 minutes. Please, will you help me?" she pleaded. Her earnestness won him over, and he agreed. Lucy led him to her room, beginning to take off his shirt, prompting Oliver to ask what was happening. "To ensure the dress fits properly, you'll need to wear this bra with forms sewn in. It has to look right. You'll also need to wear heels, women carry themselves differently in them," she explained. 15 minutes later, Oliver stood in the sewing room, clad in the uniform, while Lucy knelt to pin the hem. His jaw dropped when he saw Grace standing in the doorway. "Don't you look lovely? Is that your uniform?" Grace teased. "No, I'm just helping Lucy, like you said," Oliver replied, flustered. "Well, if I catch you in it again, it will be your uniform. Lucy can always use help, and if I see you in it again, guess who will be her new helper?" Grace warned with a sly smile. Oliver looked down at the floor, mumbling, "Yes, dear." A few minutes later, Lucy finished her work and said, "There. That wasn't too bad, was it?" Oliver replied, "Not for you." "Did you hear what Mrs. Sutton said to me?" Lucy reassured him, "Oh, yes, but don't worry. I might need one more chance to check if the hem is right, but we'll do it when we know she won't be around." "Well, I guess thanks for that. I really don't want to put it on again," Oliver admitted. Lucy suggested, "If we can do it when she's not here, why not? All I'm asking is for you to be a dressmaker's dummy for just a little while." "We'll see," Oliver said cautiously. Lucy smiled as Oliver left to change, confident they had him in a tight spot with no way out. The following afternoon, she found him in the computer room, absorbed in a game. Lucy asked, "Could you give me a hand with the uniform again?" "I'd like to, but what if my wife catches me wearing it again?" Oliver worried. "It's 1:30. It'll only take about half an hour. Have you ever seen Mrs. Sutton home this early?" Lucy replied. "Well, no. I suppose you're right. Can you promise to make it quick?" Oliver asked. "It won't take long. I just need to check the hem is straight." "You'll probably only wear it for less than 5 minutes if all goes well," Lucy assured him. Reluctantly, Oliver agreed and headed to put on the uniform. This time, Lucy added a layered petticoat, claiming it was essential for the outfit. While they were in the sewing room, Oliver suddenly heard Grace's voice. "Jenny got sick, so I couldn't have lunch with her. I thought I'd stop by and check my calendar." Well, what do we have here?" "I didn't realize you wanted to be a maid. You look adorable. If that's what you want, you can be the junior maid around here." Oliver protested, "I was just helping Lucy. I don't want to be a maid, I swear. I was just assisting her to see if the hem is right." Grace grinned and said, "From now on, you're the junior maid. Lucy is your boss, and you will do as she says. You'd better do a good job, or she'll make you regret it." "We can't have a maid named Oliver, can we, Lucy? What should we call our new maid?" Lucy suggested, "If I ever had a girl, I thought I'd name her Annette." "How does that sound?" Grace replied, "That sounds perfect to me. It doesn't sound masculine at all." Lucy added, "No, it's a very feminine name." Grace stepped closer to Oliver and declared, "You are now Annette, and as Annette, you will act as feminine as possible. You will learn to be the best lady's maid there is. Do you understand?" Tears welled in Oliver's eyes, but he nodded, acknowledging her command. Grace smiled and left the room. Lucy said, "Now we have to make you pretty for your new mistress. First, we need to give you a bath and remove that unsightly body hair." She led him to the bathroom, applying a depilatory cream and making him wait 15 minutes for it to work. As his body hair washed away, he felt a mix of sensations in the shower. After drying off, Lucy handed him a fragrant powder puff. He generously applied the powder, earning a smile from Lucy. Suddenly, he was startled as she knelt down and attached something to him. "A maid doesn't need this," Lucy said. "Besides, it'll make you sit down to use the toilet like any proper maid." Oliver blushed at the thought of wearing a chastity belt as she secured a small padlock on it. Then, she took him into her room and fitted him with a corset, tightening the laces until he could hardly breathe. She told him to take shallow breaths and assured him he would be fine. Next, she measured and marked his body to place breast forms, applying adhesive and attaching them to his chest. He immediately felt a shift in his center of balance. Lucy noted in surprise that they were Dee breasts, mentioning she didn't think Grace preferred busty women. After helping him put on stockings and teaching him how to fasten them to the garters, she slid a pair of lacy black panties up his legs. Once he was fully dressed, she brought him to her makeup table. There, she plucked his eyebrows into a thin arch and applied lipstick, eyeshadow, foundation, and blush. When Oliver looked in the mirror, he was shocked to see a woman staring back at him. Tears filled his eyes as he took in his shiny red lips. He felt a sharp sting as Lucy pierced his ears. Lucy addressed him, "I know you've had a lot going on today, but believe me, it's for the best. I'll help you as much as I can, but you need to cooperate with me. Now, let's get your wig on so we can get started." She brought out a long black wig, secured it to his head, and topped it with a decorative mob cap. Then, she took him to the kitchen and poured him a cup of coffee. Once they were seated at the table, Lucy said, "First, I need you to scrub the kitchen floor, and I want you to do a fantastic job. If you don't, I'll have to punish you and make you redo it." After finishing their coffee and loading the dirty dishes into the dishwasher, Lucy showed him where the bucket and cleaner were, instructing him to sweep the floor thoroughly first. Oliver swept, and Lucy inspected his work, complimenting him on a job well done. He filled the bucket with water and added the cleaner, then asked her where the mop was. Lucy replied, "I told you to scrub it, not mop it. You'll be doing it on your hands and knees. Every maid has to start somewhere, and this is how you'll begin." "Where are the rags?" he asked. She sent him to his bedroom for an undershirt, which made him blush as she cut it into 2 pieces and handed them to him. After explaining that he needed to scrub the floor with the cleaner, then empty the bucket and rinse it with clear water, he got down on his hands and knees. As he worked, the corset caused him considerable discomfort. When he finished scrubbing and rinsing, he called for Lucy. She examined the floor and noticed some suds lingering by the cupboards. Pointing it out, she told him he had to do it all over again, reminding him of the punishment for not getting it right the first time. Sore in his knees, he redid the floor. When he finished, he called Lucy again. This time, she inspected closely for any imperfections, but found none. "That looks just as it should. We can call this finished after your punishment," she stated. Confused by her mention of punishment, Oliver followed her into the dining area. She pointed to a chair she had pulled out, and when he sat down, she instructed him to bend over it. He hesitated, pleading not to have to do that, but she insisted. After he reluctantly complied, Lucy sat down and, before he realized what was happening, had him over her lap. She lifted his petticoats and pulled down his panties, then grabbed a long-handled hairbrush and began spanking him. By the 3rd smack, he was in tears, and by the time she delivered 10 hard swats, his rear burned. She pulled his panties back up and told him to sit in the chair next to her. "Being a maid isn't always easy, but if you do your best, it shouldn't be too bad. I'll try to give you the benefit of the doubt, but if I think you can do better, there will be consequences. The mistress expects me to train you to be an acceptable maid, and I intend to do that. Hopefully, I won't have to punish you again. A big part of being a good maid is your attitude. If you can maintain a positive outlook, things will be much easier for you. I know this is a huge shock, but try to see it from your mistress's perspective. You've failed at every job she provided. If you fail at this, I'm not sure what she'll do with you. What if she puts you out with nothing? Based on your past, I don't think you can manage much on your own. You're too good of a person to end up that way, so why don't you tell me you're willing to try to be a good maid?" Oliver replied, "I'll try to be a good maid. I don't know what Grace wants from me, I still love her, but I've never figured out what she really expects. All those jobs she assigned didn't resonate with me. I just couldn't engage with them enough to meet her expectations. Some of them frustrated me, and I know I didn't approach them with the right mindset. It felt like asking a dog to babysit a cat, it just doesn't work. Right now, I don't think Grace cares about me at all." Lucy recognized his honesty and replied, "I bet that's the first time you've really considered those things, isn't it? You don't have to answer, but I'll share my thoughts. I think the mistress still has some feelings for you, or else you'd be out the door, alone. What do you think? I don't know what to think right now, Oliver admitted. I'd love to believe she still cares for me, but if she did, why am I a maid now? Lucy responded, maybe she wants to give you one last chance. Remember, you're now the junior maid. In other words, you're in training. I'd rather train you as a friend than just as a boss. I want you to feel comfortable coming to me with any problems or questions. Do you want that? Oliver replied enthusiastically, yes, I truly appreciate that. I'll definitely come to you if you don't mind. Lucy smiled, great, that's settled. Now let's get on with your training. First and foremost, you must always refer to the mistress as mistress unless she instructs you otherwise. Do you think you can remember that? I think so, Oliver responded. Lucy had him practice curtsying until he got it right. Once he had it down, she instructed him to curtsy whenever the mistress spoke to him and upon entering or leaving her presence. It was time to begin preparing the evening meal, and Lucy started teaching him the basics of cooking. He picked it up quickly. Just before Grace was expected home, Lucy instructed him to greet her at the door, take her coat, and hang it in the closet. He was then to ask if she wanted anything before dinner was served. As he heard her car approach, he went to the door. When Grace entered, he curtsied and asked for her coat. She smiled and handed it to him, and he hung it up before asking if she wanted anything before supper. Yes, Annette, please make me a whiskey and water. I'll have it in the living room, she replied. Oliver curtsied and went to prepare the drink. He briefly considered messing it up, but decided against it. He brought the drink to her on a small tray, placing it on the table in front of her before curtsying again. You look wonderful. That must be your shade for makeup. Did Lucy put you to work after I left? Grace said. Yes, mistress. She had me scrub the kitchen floor. It shines like new, if I may say so, Oliver answered. Good. Keep up the good work. You can go help Lucy in the kitchen now, Grace instructed. Oliver curtsied and went to the kitchen. Lucy asked how it went, and he replied that it was fine. She explained that they would eat after the mistress had her meal. Grace dined in silence, and Oliver had to refill her coffee cup twice. After she finished, he cleared the table, rinsed the dishes, and loaded them into the dishwasher. By then, Grace had retreated to her study, and Lucy had prepared their meal. As they ate, Oliver said, I was looking through the cookbooks and found a recipe I think the mistress would enjoy. Do you think I could try making it for her tomorrow by myself? Lucy replied, if you really believe she'll like it, go for it. But if she doesn't, you'll take the blame and face the consequences. I think I'll take the chance. I enjoyed the little cooking I did tonight, it was fun, Oliver said. Lucy chuckled, I never considered cooking fun, but I suppose everyone has different perspectives. They made small talk, and after finishing their meal and tidying up, Lucy told him he had the rest of the evening free until the mistress wanted to prepare for bed. Then, he was to assist her. Lucy encouraged him to anticipate what Grace might need. Oliver retired to the living room, watching a couple of shows on TV. Knowing Grace usually went to bed at 10, he headed to her bedroom at that hour. He helped her get ready for bed with great care. As she settled in, she told him he could put on his nightgown. He went to Lucy's room, where she allowed him to wear the pink nightgown from her closet. Dressed, he returned to Grace's room and quietly opened the door. Approaching the bed, he began to pull down the covers. What are you doing? Grace asked. I'm going to bed, he answered. A maid doesn't sleep with her mistress unless instructed to. You can sleep in the spare bedroom next door. Tomorrow, move all your maid clothes in there so everything is handy. Good night, she replied. Silently, Oliver went to the spare bedroom. As he lay in bed, he contemplated his situation. He realized he had never done anything during their entire relationship that had impressed Grace. He wondered why she had married him in the first place and reflected on how she had proposed. He made a vow to do his best moving forward. He soon fell asleep, resting peacefully. At 6 the next morning, he awoke feeling refreshed and good, a new sensation for him. He went into the servant's bathroom to do his morning routine, applying makeup as best he could to prepare himself. Just as he was leaving, he ran into Lucy. "You look pretty good. You're learning quickly. As soon as you're dressed in your uniform, go downstairs and start the coffee. I'll meet you there," she instructed. He put on the uniform from the previous day and headed downstairs to start the coffee. While wiping a stain from the counter, Lucy entered, saw him busy, and praised his effort, encouraging him to keep it up. She informed him he would need more uniforms, so she planned to show him how to sew that day. They prepared Grace's breakfast, and when it was ready, Lucy had him take it upstairs to her. As he placed the meal on the small table next to the bed, Grace remarked, "That looks really good." She said, "You seem to be adapting to being a maid quite well. I must admit, it's a surprise to me. After you struggled with all those other jobs I assigned you, I didn't think you could do anything worthwhile. Keep up the good work, and I might consider finding you a better position. Do you have anything to say?" Oliver replied, "I have just one thing on my mind, but I'm afraid to ask because I might not like the answer." Grace encouraged him, "Go ahead and ask. Nothing can be so terrible that it would end the world." Oliver hesitated and then asked, "Well, the question is, don't you love me anymore?" Grace was taken aback, sitting in silence for a long moment. She realized she needed to respond but struggled to find the right words. Finally, she said, "You've asked me a question I never expected from you. Right now, I can't articulate how I feel about you. Can I ask you a favor?" Oliver responded, "You are the mistress, so I suppose you can do anything you want." Grace clarified, "I'm not asking this as your mistress, but as your wife." "Sure, go ahead," Oliver said. Grace continued, "Can I hold off on answering that until I figure out exactly how I feel? I want to give you a definitive answer you can understand." Oliver replied, "I guess so. I know it's not an easy question for you. Thank you. I'll head downstairs now if that's all right with you." She dismissed him, and he went downstairs to ask Lucy if they could talk. Sensing it was important, Lucy asked if it could wait until the mistress left. He agreed and began cleaning the dining area. While polishing the table, Grace passed through and quickly said goodbye to Annette before leaving. He finished with the chairs and was putting the cleaning supplies away when Lucy entered. She informed him it was time to learn how to sew. They went into the sewing room, and Oliver sat beside her at the sewing machine. "Can we talk now?" he asked. Lucy nodded, and Oliver continued, "I asked the mistress if she still loves me, and she said she wanted to hold off on her answer. Do you think she still loves me?" Lucy replied, "I can't tell you how she feels, but look at it this way, if she didn't have any good feelings toward you, you'd be on your own right now. Love can fluctuate. Her feelings for you might be down at the moment, but they're not gone. I know she's been frustrated with your lack of success in the tasks she's assigned you. This may or may not be your last chance to hold on to her. How do you feel about her right now?" Oliver said, "I think I still love her. She's always been bossy, but she never meant to hurt me. I know I've let her down in the past, and I can't promise I won't fail her again. I hope not, but you never know. I just wish I had a clearer idea of what's going to happen, it would make things easier." Lucy advised, "Do your best from now on, and I'm sure everything will work out for both you and the mistress. Now, let's get started on a new uniform for you." She began explaining how to use the sewing machine and started on the uniform. Then she switched places with him and had him do some sewing. He took to it remarkably well, impressing her with his skill. By late afternoon, they had finished the uniform. After helping him remove his old outfit, she assisted him in putting on the new one. It was a dusty gray color with white trim and fit perfectly. She explained it was intended for weekday work when a fancy uniform wasn't necessary. When she asked what color he wanted for special occasions, he suggested lavender, and she agreed it would be perfect. She promised to get the fabric so he could sew it all himself. He then went into the kitchen to prepare Grace's evening meal. When she arrived home, he greeted her at the door, took her coat, and hung it up. She mentioned she was starving, and he told her dinner would be ready in 5 minutes. Once she was seated, he placed a plate in front of her. It held 2 breaded pork chops, mashed potatoes with milk gravy, and petite peas as the vegetable. He had also made a salad of peach halves with cottage cheese on a lettuce leaf. She remarked that it looked delicious and began eating. After finishing, she exclaimed it was one of the best meals she had ever had. Lucy mentioned that Oliver had made everything. While Oliver cleared the dirty dishes and prepared Lucy's and his own supper, Grace took Lucy into the living room. Grace asked, "How is he doing? Is he giving you any trouble?" Lucy responded, "He's no trouble at all. I'm amazed at how quickly he picked up cooking and sewing. He sews like he's been doing it for years. He listens to my instructions and executes them well. I never thought I'd see a man who could cook and sew so proficiently while actually enjoying it. He seems more concerned about you and how you feel about him. Forgive me for saying this, but I genuinely believe he is still very much in love with you, and it's weighing on him that he doesn't know how you feel." Grace sighed, "I know. He asked me this morning, and I told him I would provide an answer. But I have to tell you something, and I need you to promise not to mention it to him." Lucy promised, and Grace continued, "This afternoon, I had some quiet time, and all I could think about was his question about whether I still love him. I can't find the words to respond. I don't know how to express my feelings for him. I don't think I've ever told him I love him in those exact words. If I did, I don't remember it. I really want to ease his mind, but I just don't know how. Do you have any ideas?" Lucy suggested, "Perhaps you could get him a little gift to show you care. Hopefully, he'll see it as an answer to his question. I'm not sure what you should get, but it's just a thought." Grace replied, "Lucy, you have no idea how much it means to me to be able to talk to you. I can handle business dealings with the best of them, but when it comes to my own husband, I feel completely lost." Lucy responded, "It's not always easy to deal with those we're close to. We often expect one thing, but they do another. Heart-to-heart conversations like this help us understand ourselves and sometimes others. In the last couple of days, I've realized that your husband has a good head on his shoulders. He'll admit to me when he feels lost, but I'm not sure if he's ready to share something like that with you. One thing I can tell you is that he has very deep feelings, and those feelings can be hurt in ways we might not see. The good thing is that some challenges that would typically upset a normal man don't seem to faze him. He just goes with the flow. You know what I mean? Most men would rebel against wearing a dress, but he accepted it. Not only that, but he's also revealing talents he never showed before, like cooking and sewing." Grace nodded in agreement. "I understand what you're saying. I didn't expect him to cooperate with all of this. I don't know how to process it. I've never encountered a situation like this in my business life. Let me think things over for a bit, maybe an idea will strike me that will help clarify everything." Lucy went to the kitchen to eat her supper. Oliver was finishing his meal when Lucy praised him for doing a great job. She mentioned that as soon as the stores opened the next day, she would go into town to get him some fabric for a new uniform. He asked her to get plenty of pretty lace for it, sharing that he had an idea in mind, though he wasn't sure how it would turn out. Lucy told him she would take care of the rest of the duties for the night, encouraging him to relax since he had done enough for the day. He grabbed a book from the shelf in the living room and headed to his bedroom. The next morning, he was up at 6 and hurriedly got ready for the day. He brewed some coffee and had a cup finished before Lucy arrived. Seeing the smile on his face, she commented on how nice he looked but sensed he was up to something. He handed her a piece of paper and said, "When you get the fabric, could you stop at the grocery store to pick up the items on this list? I found a recipe I just have to try. I know the mistress will love it. I can't wait to make it and see how it turns out." Lucy caught his excitement and asked what he was planning to make. He replied it was a surprise, then asked for the list back to adjust the amounts. After Grace left, Lucy told Oliver he knew what needed to be done, so he might as well get started since she was going shopping. She said she would see him in about half an hour to 45 minutes. Almost half an hour later, the doorbell rang. He went to answer it. A delivery man said, "I have something for Annette." "Are you Annette?" He confirmed he was, and the delivery man handed him a tissue-wrapped package along with a card. Taking them into the dining area, he opened the package to reveal a stunning bouquet of flowers, a massive arrangement. He quickly located a large vase, filled it with water, and arranged the flowers to make them look nice before placing them at the center of the dining table. Then he opened the card, which read, "Annette, keep up the good work. I am proud of you." Grace ** tears filled his eyes. He had never received anything like this from her before. Overwhelmed, he had to sit down to steady himself. Lucy walked in just as he was blowing his nose. Noticing his teary eyes, she asked with concern, "What's wrong?" Oliver replied, "Nothing is wrong, I'm just a bit overwhelmed, that's all." Lucy spotted the flowers and inquired, "Who are the flowers for, and who sent them?" "They're for me, from my wife. She's never done anything like this before." "Here, read the card that came with them," he said, handing it to her. After reading the card, she hugged him warmly. "It looks like you're not the only one undergoing a transformation," she said. She then revealed the beautiful lavender velvet fabric she had picked up, which pleased him even more when she showed him all the lace she had acquired. He could already envision what he wanted the finished product to look like. Then he said, "First, I need to put the meat in the marinade. Tonight, we're having the same meal as the mistress. If that's a problem, you can punish me, but I want to use tonight's supper to show my gratitude for everything you've taught me. I've developed a special feeling for you. It's not love like what I have for my wife, but more akin to how a little brother might feel toward a great big sister. Since I don't have any siblings, I'm just guessing, but that's how I imagine it." Lucy felt a lump in her throat. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. At that moment, she felt so special that she resolved to let him do what he wanted, even if it meant playing games on his computer or watching television like he used to. She watched as he covered the bowl of meat and placed it in the refrigerator. He then asked if he could start on the new uniform, and she encouraged him to go ahead. When she called him for lunch, he declined, insisting he wanted to finish the uniform before the mistress got home. By 4 o'clock, he was done. He called Lucy in to help him try it on. She was utterly amazed. It was a stunning piece, with lace sewn all around the bottom of the skirt and more lace running down the front from the waist to the neckline, which was edged with delicate lace. "That is beautiful. You did an outstanding job," she exclaimed. "It's too bad you have to cover the lace on the upper part." He replied, "But it doesn't have to be covered, watch." He revealed a pure white apron with matching lace that covered from the waist down. Once he put it on and tied it, he looked stunning. Lucy stepped up and gave him a hug. "Congratulations. The student has surpassed the teacher. You continue to amaze me." He blushed, and she helped him out of the apron. He carefully hung it up in his room before heading down to start the evening meal. He was preparing a special mint-flavored dessert but realized he didn't have any mint extract. After a moment's thought, he went into the living room and grabbed the creme de menthe from the liquor cabinet. As he returned to the kitchen, he remembered that it had last been used over a year ago at Christmas. Unsure of its strength compared to the mint flavoring, he decided to substitute about 3 shots for the 1/4 teaspoon the recipe called for. He mixed everything together and placed it in the upper oven, then checked the meat in the lower oven. The meat was starting to resemble the picture in the cookbook, so he turned down the temperature to ensure it wouldn't overcook when it was time to serve. He poked baking spikes into 3 large potatoes, preparing them for baking. By the time he was ready with them, the dessert needed to come out. He raised the oven temperature and put the potatoes in before pouring himself a cup of coffee. Sipping his coffee, he felt good about himself. For the first time in his life, things were falling into place. He thought about Grace and decided he wouldn't hold her feelings against her. He knew he had let her down in the past and couldn't blame her if she wanted him out of her life as her husband. After finishing his coffee, he set the table for her, ensuring everything was ready for when she returned home. As soon as he heard her car door slam, he hurried to meet her and take her coat. "Thank you. I'm starving," she said. He thanked her for the flowers and told her dinner was ready, assuring her he would have it on the table by the time she was ready to eat. As he placed her plate in front of her, she exclaimed, "What a darling little chicken. Where did you find them?" "They're called Cornish game hens, and I marinated them before baking. There's more meat on them than you might think. Please save room for the special dessert I made," he replied. He knew she rarely indulged in dessert, but hoped she would give his creation a try. After finishing the entree, she raved about how delicious it was and asked if he had made it all by himself. He assured her he had and asked if she was ready for dessert. When she confirmed she was, he beamed with excitement. He went to cut her a 2x2-inch piece and brought it to her, standing by as she tried it. He was astonished at how quickly she devoured it, knowing she usually lingered over desserts since she wasn't a big dessert eater. "That is really, really good. Is there another piece?" "If there is, I could definitely go for another," she said. Oliver nearly leapt to fetch her another piece. When he placed it in front of her, she asked, "Is there enough left that I could take some to work tomorrow to share with the girls?" Oliver assured her it would be ready for her. She mentioned she wanted to talk to him after he finished his supper. After she left, he and Lucy cleared the table. He then served Lucy her meal and sat down to eat his own. Lucy praised the food, and when they were finished, he got her a small piece of dessert. She told him that if he ever stopped cooking, the place wouldn't be the same. He informed her that the mistress wanted to speak with him after dinner and asked if she thought he could wear the new uniform to surprise her. Lucy thought it was a fantastic idea and urged him to change quickly, saying he shouldn't worry about finishing the other chores that night. He swiftly changed into the new uniform and checked himself in the mirror, deciding he looked presentable before heading down to the living room. Upon entering, he curtsied and said, "Mistress, I'd like to show you the formal uniform I made all by myself without any help from Lucy." Grace looked him over and gestured for him to come closer. She took the edge of the skirt in her hand and felt the fabric, noting it was a first-rate job of sewing. After letting the material drop, she motioned for him to sit on the couch beside her. He sat a little distance away, studying her face and sensing a serious expression that filled him with dread. Grace began, "Do you remember Hoagie Smith, who owns the Great Western Supper Club? He wants to retire and move to Arizona. He gave me a price to buy it as is, and I accepted this afternoon. In 2 weeks, I'm taking over control of it. Now, I have a proposition for you. You can either run it all or just the kitchen. Since you enjoy cooking, if you prefer only the kitchen, I'll understand. You'd be done with being a maid and could dress as a man again. What do you think? Doesn't it sound good?" Oliver paused for a moment before replying, "I love you and know you're doing this for me because you care. But there's something I need to share. Growing up and going to school, nothing ever turned out the way it was supposed to. In class, when there was a project, mine never resembled the teacher's model. I would look around and see others creating theirs to match what was shown. I even struggled to make toast without burning it. Then I met you. I thought things were finally turning around. We got married, and I believed life would improve. But then you assigned me all those jobs, and everything fell apart again. Whatever I tried turned sour. I sat with my computer, knowing I had let you down and feeling lost. When you told me I was to be a maid, I didn't care for it at first, but then something changed. The first task Lucy assigned was scrubbing the kitchen floor. When I finished, I looked at my work and realized I had done something right for probably the first time in my life. Then I discovered I could cook and enjoy it. The most incredible thing happened when Lucy taught me how to sew. Initially, I was just following her instructions, but soon I began to get ideas about how things should look to me. I didn't realize it then, but I was becoming creative. I've never been creative before. Now I feel proud of what I'm doing and confident that I'm doing something right. You might not realize this, but I've come to understand that none of those jobs you assigned worked out because they required me to be a boss, and I'm not that kind of person. I know I may not seem like much of a man in your eyes, let alone a husband, but I need to be honest with you. I don't think I'm the right person to run your supper club or your kitchen. I'm sorry. I'll continue to be your maid if you want, or you can file for divorce, and I won't contest it. I imagined how great it would be to serve at one of your formal gatherings wearing this uniform, but I know it would be too difficult for you to explain that your maid is actually your husband. I'll try to accept whatever solution you come up with. Grace moved closer to Oliver, took his hands in hers, and said, I feel like crying. You've shared things I never realized. I know you're being honest. First, you don't have to take any job at the supper club unless you want to be a waitress, she joked, chuckling, which made him smile as well. She continued, Oliver, dear, I've come to realize over the last few days that you are truly someone special. You have qualities I never suspected. From now on, you don't have to be a maid or a cook if you don't want to. I want you to come to our bed tonight as my husband. You can return to playing on your computer and watching television. I'll inform Lucy that things have changed. Oliver asked, Can I be the one to tell Lucy? I think I'll still help her if that's all right with you. She has so much to do, but when both of us were here, neither of us had to work too hard. Grace replied, Of course, you can tell her. There's one last thing I need to say, and I want to make up for lost time. Oliver asked, What is it? Grace declared, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. They kissed, and for the first time in their marriage, both felt a special warmth and tingling throughout their bodies.